What if one mistake could change your life forever? Chloe Martins had exactly $23, one chance, and the wrong address. She walked into a billion-dollar company by accident and got hired by the most powerful CEO in New York City. All because of one joke. Was this fate smiling at her? Or was it the start of a disaster she never saw coming? Hit subscribe now and join Chloe on the wildest ride of her life. The wrong building that changed everything. Chloe Martins had $23 in her bank account, a resume that smelled faintly of old coffee, and a dream that was hanging by a thread. It was the kind of hot, unforgiving New York summer day that made you question every life decision you'd ever made. Her shoes were blistering her feet. Her blouse was sticking to her back, and her only hope was an interview for a part-time job at a neighborhood copy shop. Parker Print. It wasn't glamorous, but it meant steady hours, maybe a little dignity, and best of all, free coffee. She had spent the last 3 blocks repeating affirmations under her breath like spells. You've got this. You're capable. You are not sweating through your blazer. When she reached the address, she blinked hard. The building stretched high above her, all glass and polished steel, with a golden logo gleaming across the top, Parker Corp. Fancy for a copy place, she muttered, adjusting the strap of her bag. Guess toner's gotten expensive. Still, she walked in, heart thumping. The lobby was quiet, cold, corporate, definitely not the smell of ink and paper jams. But before she could second-guess herself, the receptionist, who looked like she hadn't smiled since the Bush administration, asked, "Name?" "Chloe Martins. I'm here for the interview?" She said it like a question, holding out her resume with a little too much hope. The receptionist slid a visitor badge across the counter and pointed to the elevator. 17th floor, room 7C. Chloe stepped into the elevator, suddenly surrounded by people in tailored suits and shiny shoes. She tried to copy their posture, smoothed her blazer, and quietly begged the universe not to let her trip over her own feet. When the doors opened, she was escorted to a pristine glass conference room. She sat, waiting, fidgeting. That's when the door opened, and he walked in. Nathan Parker. Tall, sharply dressed, unreadable expression. His presence filled the room like gravity. And from the look on his face, it was immediately clear. This was not the guy interviewing for a barista position. He sat down across from her, eyes still fixed on his tablet. Name? Chloe Martins, she said again, trying to sound confident. He looked up, finally, and raised an eyebrow. Parker Print? Yep, she said with a smile that was 1 part courage, 2 parts panic. I'm a wizard with A4 paper, rogue staplers, and rebellious toner cartridges. It's a calling. Nathan didn't smile. Instead, he stared at her resume for another beat and then said, almost kindly, "Ms. Martins, Parker Print is 2 doors past the pharmacy. This is Parker Corp., global tech firm. You're in the wrong building." For a moment, the earth could have opened and swallowed her whole. And maybe it should have. But instead of apologizing and running, Chloe blinked and said, "Well, I'm here now, and I make a mean cup of coffee. Also, I answer phones like a Broadway star. Ever heard someone say, 'Good morning. How can I help you?' With passion. I can do variations." There was a pause. Then something unthinkable happened. Nathan Parker laughed. It was small, brief, but real. "You're seriously pitching yourself for a job you didn't know existed until 5 minutes ago?" he asked. "I call it professional flexibility," Chloe replied. "I adapt. You want someone who can file reports and babysit your goldfish? I'm your girl." Nathan leaned back, studying her. Then he said something no one in their right mind would have expected. "Start tomorrow, 8 sharp." Chloe blinked. "I'm sorry. What?" "Personal secretary. Office next to mine. You'll need coffee, paper, and, God help me, enthusiasm." She opened her mouth to respond but couldn't find the words. He stood. "And don't call me, sir. It's Nathan. Just Nathan." He walked out, and Chloe stood there, stunned, holding a visitor badge like it was a golden ticket to a life she hadn't dared dream about. She'd walked into the wrong building, and walked out with a job. Session 1. Hired by mistake. Kept by surprise. The elevator ride down felt like a dream. Chloe stood in the corner, clutching her new employee badge like it was made of gold. She stared at her reflection in the mirror panel wall, her eyes wide with disbelief. "I just got hired by a stranger." In a company I wasn't even supposed to be in. She laughed, mostly to herself, mostly out of nerves. A janitor stepped in at the 10th floor. Chloe looked at him and whispered, "He said I start tomorrow." The janitor nodded politely, clearly used to seeing stunned people on elevators. When the doors opened, Chloe stepped out into the buzzing Manhattan air. She squinted against the sunlight, letting the moment sink in. A part of her wanted to call someone, anyone, and scream the news. Instead, she walked to the bus stop and pulled out her phone. No missed calls, no new messages. She hesitated. Then she dialed one number she knew by heart. "Mom," she said when the line picked up. "You're not going to believe this." That night, Chloe couldn't sleep. She lay on her tiny mattress in her studio apartment, eyes fixed on the ceiling fan that squeaked every third rotation. Her resume was still on the floor, crumpled and coffee-stained, but now it felt like a souvenir. She replayed the moment over and over in her head. The moment Nathan Parker looked her in the eye and said, "Start tomorrow." What kind of person does that? And more importantly, why her? There were no answers, just butterflies in her stomach and a growing sense of maybe. Maybe something good was finally happening. Maybe this was her plot twist. The next morning, Chloe woke up an hour earlier than necessary. Not because she had to, but because sleep had become a luxury she couldn't afford when her future was on the line. She stood in front of her open closet for a full 10 minutes. Debating whether to wear the "I'm responsible" blouse or the "I'm trying but I still own this from a thrift store" blouse. She picked both and layered them, because that's what anxiety does. By 7:30 a.m., she was on the bus, her badge tucked safely in her pocket, her heart doing Olympic flips in her chest. By 7:56 a.m., she walked through the lobby of Parker Corp like she belonged. Sort of. The 17th floor was overwhelming. Glass everywhere. Sharp edges, voices in hushed, professional tones. It smelled like money and eucalyptus air freshener. Chloe tried to walk with purpose, nodding at a tall man in a navy suit. He didn't nod back. Classic. She stopped in front of the same door from the day before and took a breath. Before she could knock, it swung open. "Amanda." "Chloe," she said without a smile, her tone crisp as a freshly ironed collar. "You're early." "I brought optimism and a willingness to learn," Chloe said, then added, "and a granola bar if you're hungry." Amanda didn't respond to the joke. Chloe followed her through the hallway. "This is your desk. You'll be Mr. Parker's personal secretary. That means managing his calendar, screening his calls, and, if you're lucky, getting a nod of approval when things don't explode." Chloe nodded solemnly. "I live for approval nods." Amanda pointed to the computer. "Start here. Learn the system. Don't delete anything. Don't CC the CFO by accident. And never, ever interrupt Nathan when he has his headphones on." "Got it." No interrupting the brooding tech billionaire during his sacred Spotify sessions. Amanda blinked. "I'm not sure if that was sarcasm or fear." Chloe smiled. "A little bit of both." By 10 a.m., Chloe had clicked on every wrong file imaginable. She called facilities instead of finance. She tried to print a company handbook and ended up printing 37 copies of an old holiday memo that said, "Merry Techmas." At one point, she spilled her water bottle across a spreadsheet and screamed, "No, you have value," as she scrambled to save the pages. It was chaos, but it was her kind of chaos. Just before lunch, Nathan walked out of his office, holding a coffee mug that said, "Control plus Alt plus Del." He paused at her desk. "Still here?" he asked. Chloe saluted. "Haven't been fired. That's a win in my world." He eyed the 3 sticky notes on her forehead. One read, "Check email." Another said, "Don't forget Nathan's 3 p.m. And the third simply said, "Breathe." Nathan smirked. "Interesting filing system. I call it forehead reminders. Very cutting edge." He looked like he was going to say something else, then just nodded and walked away. Approval nod achieved. At lunch, Chloe sat alone in the cafeteria, surrounded by people in designer shoes and unreadable expressions. She stirred her soup, wondering how long before someone figured out she wasn't qualified to be here. That she wasn't one of them. Then a voice cut through. "Are you the secretary who got hired by accident?" She turned. A guy with a relaxed grin and an IT badge sat down beside her. "That's me," she said, walking typo. "Human glitch. I'm Eduardo. Welcome to the island of misfit hires." She smiled. "Finally. Someone who got it. You'll be fine, he said. Mr. Parker's weird, but fair. If you can make him laugh, you're halfway to sainthood. Chloe looked down at her tray. I think I did that yesterday. Eduardo grinned. Then you might just be his miracle. Session 2. Coffee. Calendars and chaos. Some jobs come with benefits. This one came with feelings. The second day started with Chloe pouring coffee down her sleeve. In her defense, she hadn't slept much. Not from worry, though there was plenty of that, but from overthinking. What if yesterday had been a fluke? What if she walked in today and the receptionist simply looked up and said, "Sorry, Ms. Martins, your miracle expired." But no. When she arrived at 7:58 a.m., same badge. Same nervous smile. The receptionist barely looked up before waving her through. Progress, right? By 8:10, Chloe had already spilled her coffee, tripped over her own feet, and accidentally locked herself out of her computer account by typing her password in the username field 3 times. But she wasn't giving up. Not when she'd come this far. Not when she felt weirdly happy being here. Nathan Parker walked into the office at 8:45 sharp, wearing a crisp navy suit and the kind of expression that could slice silence in half. He paused in front of Chloe's desk, eyeing the mountain of sticky notes on her monitor and the open notebook that had "Don't panic" yet scribbled across the top. Busy morning? He asked dryly. Productive chaos, she said, smiling like she meant it. He nodded once, the unofficial Parker Corp sign of approval, and disappeared into his office. Seconds later, Amanda appeared. You told the legal department Nathan was on a call with the universe. Chloe blinked. That may have happened. Amanda sighed. Let's go over the phone script again. By noon, Chloe had settled into a rhythm, sort of. She was slowly figuring out the software system, had only called the cleaning crew instead of IT once, and was getting better at translating Nathan's grunts into real-world scheduling. The office was buzzing, phones ringing, people passing by with folders, tablets, too many espressos in hand. And then her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Name on screen. Grandma Dolores. She answered on instinct. Parker Corp. This is Chloe. A firm, warm voice crackled through the line. Is this the girl keeping my grandson from turning into a spreadsheet with legs? Chloe blinked. I'm sorry? This is Dolores Parker, Nathan's grandmother. You must be the new assistant. Are you the one who made him laugh last week? I almost fainted when he told me. I may have been involved. Good. That boy needs more people like you. Tell him to call me. And, sweetheart? Yes, ma'am? I'm planning dinner. Friday. You're coming. Click. Chloe stared at the phone. Did she just get invited to family dinner by her boss's grandmother? At 3 p.m., Nathan emerged from his office, sipping his third coffee of the day. You have a call to return, Chloe said, flipping through her notes. Dolores Parker. Sounded sweet, slightly terrifying. Also, I think I'm going to dinner at her house? Nathan froze mid-sip. She invited you? She didn't ask. She summoned. Nathan sighed. She's determined. I gathered. He looked genuinely uncomfortable, almost vulnerable. She's been trying to set me up with someone for years. He explained. Dinner invites usually come with a surprise fiancé. So I'll be dinner entertainment and human shield? Nathan raised an eyebrow. You're surprisingly good at multitasking. I contain multitudes, Chloe said with a wink. He paused, studied her. Something passed behind his eyes, a flicker of thought. Maybe even regret. What if? He said slowly. You came to dinner as my girlfriend? Chloe blinked. I'm sorry. You want me to pretend to be your girlfriend? Nathan looked dead serious. Temporarily. Just to keep my grandmother from planning my wedding with someone from her yoga class. Chloe leaned back. You're asking your assistant, who danced with a paper shredder this morning, to lie to your family? Technically, yes, but you're oddly convincing. She stared at him. This is insane. I'm aware. There was a long pause. Then Chloe grinned. What's in it for me? Nathan gave a small smile. Flexible hours, a bonus, and the chance to witness my grandmother's approval. That's rare. Chloe thought for a second. Fine, but I have 3 conditions. 3? 1. No public pet names unless we're being watched. Deal. 2. If your grandma asks how we met, I want to say, over toner and bad coffee. Because technically it's true. Nathan chuckled. Fine. And 3. She leaned forward. At least pretend to look like you like me in front of her. I want full eye contact acting. Nathan nodded. You're hired. I already was hired. Well, now you're hired again. That Friday, Chloe stood in front of Nathan's building in a navy dress and her favorite lipstick. She didn't look rich or expensive, just radiant in her own wildly chaotic way. Nathan opened the door in a tailored blazer, gave her a once-over, and said, "You look appropriate." She raised an eyebrow. "And you look like someone who's already scheduled next Tuesday's emotions." The car ride to Grandma Dolores's house was quiet, but not awkward. More like two people silently rehearsing for a lie they weren't sure they could pull off. When they arrived, Dolores greeted them at the door with a smile and a look that could outsmart a politician. She hugged Chloe tight. "You look like someone who could make my grandson human again." "I try." Chloe smiled, one sarcastic comment at a time. Over dinner, Chloe played her part beautifully. She laughed at Nathan's stories, teased him about his coffee addiction, and even convinced Dolores that Nathan had cooked for her once. Burned the rice, though, Chloe added. "Progress," Dolores said proudly. "At least he tried." After dinner, as they sat in the backseat of the car, Chloe looked out the window and whispered, "I think I just survived a fake relationship trial by fire." Nathan didn't respond immediately. Then he said, "You were perfect." She smiled, but neither of them could shake the feeling that the lie was starting to feel a little too real. And that's where the trouble usually begins. Session 3. The move-in clause. At some point, pretending starts to feel a lot like the truth. Nathan Parker never did things halfway. That's why when his phone buzzed with a message from his grandmother reading, "Might stop by your place soon. Want to see how the happy couple is living," his blood pressure doubled. Chloe had only been his pretend girlfriend for 5 days. 5 chaotic, oddly comfortable days. But now his grandmother wanted proof. Visual confirmation. A domestic fairy tale. He stared at his phone for a full minute before walking into Chloe's space outside his office. She was scribbling something onto a post-it that said, "Don't forget to pretend you have it together." He cleared his throat. "Chloe." She looked up, smiling. "Yes, my charmingly grumpy fake boyfriend?" He almost smiled. "Almost. We have a problem." "I'm listening." "My grandmother wants to visit. Soon, possibly unannounced. She expects to see us together." "Together like brunch together?" "No, together like living together." The air between them shifted. Chloe blinked. "You mean she expects me to be at your apartment?" "She'll want to see us cohabiting. Happily. In love. With matching toothbrushes and maybe a shared Netflix password." Chloe leaned back slowly. "And you're telling me this because I think," he said carefully, "you need to move in." She stared at him, deadpan. "Nathan, you just asked your assistant to move into your home. Do you hear yourself? Just temporarily. A few weeks. Maybe. Until the pressure lets up." She stood up, arms crossed. "You want me to live in your penthouse? Pretend we're a couple, sleep under the same roof, and smile for grandma?" He nodded once. "That's the idea." Chloe was quiet. Then, "Do I get my own bathroom?" "Absolutely. And a room with a door that locks?" "Non-negotiable. And snacks. My snacks. Not sad celery sticks. I'll stock the pantry." She tilted her head. "Throw in a cookie jar and you have a deal." Nathan extended his hand. "Welcome to your new, temporary home." She shook it. "God help us both." That night, Chloe stood in front of Nathan's apartment building with a suitcase that had seen better days. A pillow under one arm, and a bag labeled, "Essentials and Emergency Chocolate." He opened the door, looked her up and down. "Did you bring the entire apartment?" "Just the parts with personality." Nathan stepped aside, letting her in. His place was exactly what she expected, sleek, clean, almost aggressively organized. No clutter, no color, just muted tones and surfaces that looked allergic to dust. Chloe stepped into the living room and slowly turned in a circle. "This place looks like a catalog. Where's the chaos? The unmatched socks? The half-dead plant someone refuses to throw out?" Nathan crossed his arms. "They don't exist here." "Well, get ready, because I come with tangled charger cords, snack wrappers, and late-night musical humming." Nathan motioned down the hall. "Guest rooms to the right. Make it yours. Just, no glitter. No promises." Within 10 minutes, Chloe had already draped a colorful scarf across the bed, placed 2 mismatched books on the nightstand, and unpacked a photo of her and her mom from 4 Christmases ago. Nathan stood in the doorway, watching. You moved in like you've done this before. I was raised by a single mom in 5 apartments across 2 states. I can claim space faster than FEMA. He cracked the faintest smile. We need ground rules. Chloe nodded, grabbing her notebook. Let's make a list. Rule 1, Nathan said. No entering each other's rooms without knocking. Fair. Rule 2, no judging my cereal consumption. He raised an eyebrow. Rule 3, shared spaces stay clean. Except when emotional breakdowns require ice cream on the couch. Exception granted. She grinned. We're nailing this already. The first night was weird. They had dinner at the long glass dining table. Nathan made grilled salmon with asparagus. Chloe contributed a bag of frozen mozzarella sticks. Then they sat on opposite ends of the couch, watching a cooking show neither of them really paid attention to. Do you always eat that healthy? Chloe asked. I like structure, consistency, and seasoning? He gave her a sideways look. I don't need flavor to survive. Chloe snorted. That should be on your tombstone. At 1:14 a.m., Chloe got up to get water and found Nathan in the kitchen, sitting in the dark with a mug of tea. You don't sleep? She whispered. I don't sleep well. Nightmares? Memories. She didn't ask more. She didn't need to. Sometimes silence was the kindest thing you could give someone. She sat beside him. I snore, she said after a beat. He glanced at her, loudly, like an old car with asthma. A soft laugh escaped his lips. I talk in my sleep, he replied, mostly about financial projections. Sexy. They sat in silence for another minute. Then Chloe said, You know this is going to get complicated, right? I know. But we're pretending. We are. But pretending has a funny way of turning real. He didn't answer. Didn't have to. The next morning, Chloe made coffee and played her anti-silence playlist, soft jazz. Mellow guitar. Nathan walked in, perfectly dressed, and raised an eyebrow. You planning a dinner party? Nope. Just hate quiet kitchens. He poured coffee, took a sip, and mumbled, Not bad. She beamed. A compliment. I'll frame it. That afternoon, Dolores called Nathan again. How's my favorite couple? She asked cheerfully. We're adjusting. Good, because I might swing by Sunday afternoon. Nathan gripped the phone. You're coming here? I want to see the love nest. Don't worry. I'll bring cookies. Nathan was silent. You are living together, right? Dolores asked. Yes. Sleeping in separate rooms? Yes. Well, make sure it doesn't look that way. I want to see love. Nathan, not legal boundaries. Click. When Nathan told Chloe, she almost choked on her protein bar. She's inspecting us? She wants evidence. Chloe groaned. So what now? Photos. Shoes by the door. One of your toothbrushes in my bathroom. Strategic mess? Exactly. She looked at him seriously. Nathan, we're one fake puppy away from a Hallmark movie. He didn't smile. Instead, he said something that made her heart skip. I just need you to be there. Not perfect. Not anything. Just there. She stared at him for a second too long. Then nodded. I can do that. Session 4, the inspection. You can fake love with your words, but not with your eyes. Sunday afternoon arrived like a storm with a pretty dress on. The air in Nathan's penthouse apartment was unusually tense. Chloe had been fluffing pillows for 20 straight minutes, which was hilarious, considering Nathan's couch already looked like it had been fluffed by a NASA-approved alignment tool. Do you think she'll notice the separate rooms? Chloe asked, pacing across the living room barefoot, holding a potted plant she didn't remember buying. Nathan looked up from his phone, where he was reviewing a spreadsheet like it might save him from emotional confrontation. I left your scarf in my room. Toothbrushes in my bathroom. Shoes by the door. That's more than enough fake intimacy for one grandmother. She's not just any grandmother. She's Dolores Parker, the woman who terrifies half your board. Nathan sighed, then muttered, I should have just told her we broke up. And let her win? Never. Chloe dropped onto the couch. Besides, we are kind of convincing. He glanced at her, and for a second too long. He didn't look away. You're right, he said quietly. You are. The doorbell rang. Chloe jumped to her feet, smoothed her dress, and whispered like they were in a spy movie. Operation. Sweet old lady is go. Nathan opened the door, and there she was. Dolores Parker in a pink cashmere cardigan, oversized sunglasses, and holding a box of cookies that probably had more butter than flour. "Well, look at this," she beamed, stepping inside like she owned the place. Two beautiful liars pretending they're not madly in love. Chloe blinked. "Excuse me? I brought lemon cookies," Dolores said, walking past them. "They're shaped like hearts. Subtle, aren't they?" Nathan closed the door with a sigh. "Hi, Grandma." "Oh hush." She waved him off. "You don't call. You don't text. I have to stalk your Instagram just to see if you've eaten recently." "I don't have Instagram. I follow your assistants. Much more entertaining." Chloe smiled sheepishly. "I post emotionally charged sandwiches." Dolores sat down and looked around. "Nice apartment, but it's missing something." Nathan raised an eyebrow. "Like what?" "Life. Clutter. Noise. You know, real people things. But I see your touch. The scarf. The shoes. The plant that's already giving up." "I overwatered it," Chloe admitted. "You overfeel. Darling, it's a gift." Dolores patted her hand. Nathan disappeared into the kitchen, mumbling something about coffee. Dolores leaned closer to Chloe. "How's he doing?" "Really?" Chloe hesitated. "He's trying. He doesn't talk much, but he listens. And he remembers things I didn't know I said out loud." Dolores studied her carefully, then smiled. "I knew it." "Knew what?" "That you're the girl who'll wreck his loneliness." The three of them sat down for cookies and awkward small talk. Chloe did most of the talking. Dolores did most of the smiling. Nathan mostly refilled the teacups like it was his only job. "So," Dolores said casually, "tell me how you two met." Chloe and Nathan exchanged a glance. They'd rehearsed this. "At the office coffee machine," Chloe said. "He offered me sugar. I meant for the tea." Nathan added, "Perfectly on cue." Dolores narrowed her eyes, amused. "How romantic." "Then I tripped in the elevator." Chloe continued. "He caught me. Very cinematic." "She's exaggerating," Nathan said. "I'm embellishing," Chloe corrected. "There's a difference." Dolores smiled to herself and stood up. "Well, now I've seen what I needed to see. You two are either Oscar-worthy actors, or this little charade isn't so little anymore." Nathan tensed. "Grandma." She held up a hand. "Relax. I won't say a word. But I've been around long enough to know when two people are lying to others and when they're lying to themselves." She walked to the door, turning back just before leaving. "You know what makes love real? Not the grand gestures, not the dinners. It's who you miss when the apartment gets quiet." Then she was gone. The apartment felt still afterward. Chloe sank onto the couch, staring at the closed door. "I think I just got psychoanalyzed by an 80-year-old with lemon cookies." "She always does that," Nathan mumbled. "Catches you off guard." "She said we're lying to ourselves." Nathan said nothing. "You think we are?" she asked softly. Still, silence. Then, "I think I haven't had this much peace in years. Even with all your humming. Especially with your humming." She looked at him, really looked. And there was something in his expression she hadn't seen before, not confusion. Not discomfort, but vulnerability. The kind that sneaks out when a wall begins to crack. Chloe stood. "I should move my scarf out of your room, in case your grandma comes back with a surprise camera crew." Nathan stepped closer. "Leave it." She blinked. "Why?" He paused, then said quietly, "Because it's the only thing that makes that room feel lived in." Chloe didn't reply. Her heart did the talking, thumping, thudding, aching in her chest. She walked to her bedroom, closed the door, pressed her back against it. She was pretending. He was pretending. But the feelings? They weren't pretending at all. Session 5. The elevator moment. Every great story has an elevator scene. This is theirs. It started with a power outage. 1 second, Chloe was in the middle of printing tomorrow's schedule. The next, everything went dark, screens flickered. The AC sighed into silence. And the hum of the office died out. "Was that normal?" she asked aloud. From his office, Nathan appeared almost immediately, phone flashlight in hand. "Backup generator's supposed to kick in," he said, calm but alert. "Give it a minute." It didn't. Instead, Amanda walked down the hallway like a graceful storm cloud. Building-wide failure. Elevators are locked. Emergency lights only. IT says it could be a few hours. Nathan frowned. How does a multi-million-dollar tech firm lose power in Manhattan? Amanda shrugged. Maybe the universe is tired of efficiency. Chloe, sitting on the edge of her desk, grinned. "I always said this place needed more drama." Nathan looked at her. his mouth twitching slightly. "You want drama?" he said. "Come with me." The elevator was empty, glowing softly with the dim red of emergency lights. It looked like something out of a movie, part romantic, part eerie, all cinematic. Nathan pressed the G button out of habit. Chloe raised an eyebrow. "Did you forget it's not working?" "Old habit," he muttered. They stood in silence for a moment. The elevator didn't move. Nathan leaned against the wall. Chloe leaned beside him. "Well," she said, "this is either the setup for a horror movie, or a pivotal emotional scene." "Let's hope for the second one," he replied. She chuckled softly. "You know what's funny? I always imagined big life moments happen with trumpets, fireworks, speeches. But lately, it's been coffee. Sticky notes. Your weirdly perfect hair." Nathan glanced sideways. "You think my hair is perfect?" She gave a teasing smile. "Statistically, yes. It's offensive." Silence fell again, but this time, it wasn't awkward. It was thick, charged, waiting. "You're different," Nathan said suddenly, his voice low. Chloe turned. "Different how?" He didn't look at her. "You walk into a room and everything shifts. You mess up things but somehow fix people. You irritate me and calm me." At the same time, she blinked. Her heart didn't just skip, it launched. "Nathan?" He finally looked at her. "I don't know when it happened," he said quietly, but pretending stopped feeling like pretending. She stared at him, unsure if she was breathing. "I thought I was keeping things simple," he continued, "but nothing about this is simple. You're not simple. You're chaos and warmth and unexpected everything." Chloe swallowed hard. "You kissed me once," she said softly, and then acted like it didn't happen. Nathan's jaw clenched, because if I acknowledged it, it would have been real. It was real. Silence. Then, the elevator lights flickered again, and in that sudden flash of illumination and darkness, Nathan stepped forward, closed the space between them, and gently pressed his forehead to hers. "I'm scared," he whispered. "So am I," Chloe replied, but she didn't move away. Instead, she leaned in, and for the second time, this time with no contract, no plan, no pretending, he kissed her. It was slow, honest, a little shaky from nerves but steady in truth. When they finally pulled apart, Chloe rested her hands on his chest. "So now what?" she asked. Nathan's voice was rough. "Now we stop lying. To your grandma? To ourselves." When they stepped out of the elevator, 10 minutes later when power returned, the world hadn't changed. But they had. Something had cracked open between them. Something terrifying. Something beautiful. Nathan walked ahead slightly, but at the threshold to his office, he turned back. "Dinner tonight. No pretending. Just us." Chloe smiled. "I'll bring the cookies." That night, over takeout and mismatched wine glasses, they sat on the floor of Nathan's minimalist living room. He was still in a white button-up, sleeves rolled to his forearms. She wore his oversized hoodie and no makeup. And somehow, this was the most intimate they had ever been. "I keep thinking," Chloe said between bites of lo mein, "how weird it is that this all started because I walked into the wrong building." Nathan looked at her for a long time. "No," he said finally. "You walked into the right one. Just not for the job you thought." She tilted her head. "Then what was I hired for?" "Exactly?" Nathan's voice dropped to a near whisper. "To remind me I'm still alive." Chloe's throat tightened. No one had ever said anything like that to her. Not even close. She reached over, took his hand, and whispered back, "And you reminded me I'm still worth something." They didn't kiss again. They didn't have to. Sometimes love doesn't arrive with a bang. Sometimes, it shows up in a dead elevator and a shared silence you never want to leave. Session 6. The X returns. The past doesn't knock. It barges in. It was a rainy Wednesday when the past came knocking, quite literally. Chloe had just finished refilling the coffee machine on the 17th floor. She was humming under her breath, already feeling lighter these days. Ever since the kiss, something unspoken had started blooming between her and Nathan. There were no more rules. No more pretending, just lingering glances, half smiles, and the way he always seemed to know when she needed another sticky note or a 5-minute mental break. Things weren't perfect, but they were real, and that was enough. Until the elevator dinged, and a woman stepped out like she owned the floor. Tall, elegant, confident in the way only someone with a long history could be. She wore a deep burgundy trench coat, sunglasses even though it was raining, and a smirk that said, I know exactly what I'm doing. She walked up to the reception desk and said one name. Nathan Parker. Chloe looked up from her mug. Something twisted in her gut. Amanda stepped out of her office. Her face unreadable. Miss Rachel. You're back. Rachel. Even the name sounded like a ghost wrapped in silk. Amanda didn't offer a smile. He's in a meeting. I'll let him know you're here. No need, Rachel said coolly. I remember the way. She started walking, past the desks, past the stairs, until she was standing directly outside Nathan's office. Chloe stepped in her path. Can I help you? Rachel turned, slowly, taking her in. And you are? I work here. Rachel smiled, clearly. But you're not Amanda. And you're definitely not legal counsel. Chloe squared her shoulders. Still, you don't get to barge in unannounced. Rachel tilted her head, protective. That's new. Before Chloe could reply, the door opened, and there he was. Nathan Parker, standing in the doorway, face frozen. Rachel. She smiled. Hello, Nathan. Chloe stepped back, unsure why her heart had started racing, or why Nathan suddenly looked like someone had cut the air out of the room. He didn't smile, didn't speak. Rachel stepped past him, into his office, like she'd done it 1,000 times before. The door clicked shut, and Chloe just stood there, holding her breath, holding her fear. The meeting lasted 27 minutes. Chloe knew because she counted every second. When the door finally opened, Rachel stepped out first, composed, victorious. Nathan followed behind her, his expression unreadable. Rachel turned back at the doorway. Nice place. Still a little cold, though. Then she looked at Chloe. You're pretty. That helps. She walked away, heels clicking like gunshots down the hall. Nathan didn't move. Neither did Chloe. Then finally, softly, she asked, Want to tell me who that was? Nathan hesitated. My ex-fiancé. The words hit harder than expected. Chloe blinked. Fiancé? He nodded once. We were engaged. A long time ago. And she just showed up? She's in town, apparently for business. Said she wanted to talk. Chloe folded her arms. And? Nathan looked at her, eyes tired. And she wanted to see if we could try again. There it was. The punch to the gut. And what did you say? Nathan exhaled. That it's too late. That I'm not the same man. That I'm involved with someone else. Chloe tried to smile. Well, that's me, right? The someone else? Nathan stepped closer. You know it is. But Chloe didn't answer. Instead, she turned and walked back to her desk, suddenly aware of every pair of eyes on her. That night, back at the apartment, things were quiet. Too quiet. Nathan made dinner, but they barely ate. Chloe sat across from him, picking at her food, trying to shake the image of her, of Rachel. So polished, so poised, so undeniably part of his past. You're not talking, Nathan said finally. I'm thinking. About? Whether I'm temporary. He froze. You're not. Don't lie to me, Nathan. I've been lied to before. I know how it smells. He set his fork down. She left me, without warning, 3 weeks before the wedding. Chloe's eyes widened. Nathan's voice dropped. I spent a year picking up pieces I didn't know were broken. I buried myself in work, in silence, in control, until I showed up. He nodded. Until you tripped into my life wearing a blazer 2 sizes too big and offering to organize broken hearts. Chloe tried to smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. I'm not her, she said quietly. I know. I don't have her poise, or her confidence, or... Nathan cut her off. You have something she never had. What's that? He looked at her like it was obvious. You see me, not just the surface, not just the CEO. You see the mess underneath, and you stay. Chloe felt her throat tighten. I'm scared, she whispered. So am I. He reached across the table, took her hand. But for the first time in a long time, I want to fight for something that isn't just a number or a report. Chloe looked at him. Then don't let her back in. I already closed that door. She nodded, squeezing his hand. Good, because if you don't, I'll slam it myself. Later that night, as the city lights flickered across the windows, Chloe sat on the couch in Nathan's hoodie, sipping tea. Nathan sat beside her, closer than usual. You know, she said softly, I never had anyone fight for me. Not really. You do now. And for the first time in days, Chloe let herself believe it. Even with the past knocking, the future was finally starting to open. Session 7. The letter she wasn't supposed to find. Sometimes the words we never send say more than the ones we do. The apartment was quiet again. Not the heavy kind of silence, not like the day Rachel came, but the gentle, breathing kind. The kind that happened when two people were slowly learning to coexist in something real. Nathan had left early for a board meeting. Chloe had the day off. And for once, she wasn't scrambling to be somewhere or be someone. She brewed coffee, played her playlist, folded laundry that wasn't hers, but had slowly become half hers. Nathan's t-shirts, his absurdly symmetrical sock pairs, the hoodie she now claimed by squatters' rights. And then, while putting away some files he'd left on the dining table, something slipped out of a folder and onto the floor. A letter. Old, yellowed at the corners, handwritten, folded 3 times, no envelope. She picked it up without thinking. At first, she meant to just put it back. But then she saw the first line. To the girl I haven't met yet. Chloe's breath caught. She read the rest. To the girl I haven't met yet. I don't know your name. I don't know the sound of your voice or the shape of your smile. I don't know if you'll love rainy mornings or if you'll hate how I overthink everything. But I hope you exist. Because right now, I'm tired. I'm tired of pretending I'm fine. Of filling my life with meetings and numbers and forgetting what laughter sounds like in the morning. I'm tired of being alone in a room full of noise. So if you're out there, if you're real, I just want you to know this. I want to build something quiet with you. Not perfect, just true. I want to argue about stupid things like who left the milk out and whether jazz belongs in elevators. I want to hold your hand while we fight. And then again when we're too tired to keep pretending we're not scared. I want to come home to someone who isn't impressed by my title but is impressed when I remember to buy flowers for no reason. I want you to see the parts of me I try to hide. The parts even I'm afraid of. And I want you to stay anyway. And if we meet, I probably won't say any of this out loud. I'll pretend to be cold. I'll hide behind sarcasm. But please, don't believe any of it. Believe this instead. I'm waiting for you. And I already miss you. N. Chloe stared at the paper for a long time. Her hands were trembling. She read it again, and again, and again. Not because she didn't understand, but because she did. It wasn't just a letter. It was him. The version of Nathan that only she had ever seen. The soft center underneath the CEO. The one who made her tea at 2 a.m. The one who kept her scarf in his room long after the act had ended. And somehow, even years ago, he had written to her. Or someone who felt just like her. Tears filled her eyes before she realized they'd formed. She carefully folded the letter back and placed it on the table. Just as she found it. But the feeling, the knowing, didn't leave her. That night, when Nathan returned home, Chloe was already in the kitchen. Barefoot, stirring something in a pot that smelled like cinnamon and rebellion. He blinked. You cooked? Don't act so surprised. I thought you were more of a delivery connoisseur. I am, but sometimes you cook for people you care about. Nathan hesitated. What's the occasion? Chloe turned, spoon in hand. Just wanted you to come home to something warm. There was something in her tone. Something softer than usual. He didn't question it. They ate on the couch. Legs tangled. No TV playing. Just the hum of city noise through the windows and the quiet between two people who had stopped pretending. But later, when Nathan reached for a folder on the table, he paused. The letter was sitting on top. He knew it hadn't been there when he left. He looked up. Chloe was sitting by the window now, sipping tea. She met his eyes. You wrote that before me, she said gently. Nathan didn't speak, and yet, it felt like you were writing to me anyway. His jaw tightened. I never meant for anyone to see that. I know. That's what makes it beautiful. He stepped closer. It's embarrassing. It's honest. She stood up now, voice a little shaky. And it's everything I've ever wanted someone to say, even if they never meant it for me. He stared at her, heart pounding. I meant it, he said finally. Every word. She walked toward him slowly. Then say it again. Not on paper. Not to some, someday, version of me. Say it now. Here. He swallowed hard. I want to build something quiet with you. He whispered. She closed the distance. And messy, she added. And honest, he continued. And complicated. And beautiful, he finished. They stood inches apart now. Chloe looked up at him with wet eyes. Then I'm staying, not because of the letter. Because of the man who wrote it. He reached up, touched her cheek. I've been waiting for you. She smiled through the tears. I'm not going anywhere. And just like that, Something unspoken became a vow. No rain, no ceremony. Just two people in a quiet apartment, choosing each other. On purpose. Session 8. The almost goodbye. Some goodbyes don't happen with doors slamming. Sometimes, it's just silence that gets too loud. It had been almost 2 weeks since Chloe read the letter. Since Nathan said those words, not from paper, but from his lips. Things had changed. Not dramatically. There were no grand declarations or fireworks. But there was ease. Chloe woke up each morning knowing she belonged somewhere. Nathan came home each night and smiled like he meant it. They weren't perfect, but they were real. Which is why what happened next hurt so much more. It began with a box. A small, unassuming box left on Nathan's desk by Amanda, a delivery from legal. She said. Chloe didn't think much of it. Until she glanced at the sender label. Rachel Dawson. The name hit her like cold water. She didn't mean to open it. She knew better. But curiosity had a cruel way of teaming up with fear. Inside the box, a silver tie clip and a card. Chloe picked it up with shaking fingers. Nathan, I thought this belonged with you. I found it in the drawer you never emptied. Maybe some things are meant to find their way back. That night, Chloe didn't say anything. She didn't mention the box. Didn't ask why it was still on his desk. She just sat through dinner. Smiled too much. Laughed too loud. And when Nathan asked if she was okay, she lied with practiced ease. I'm just tired. He believed her. Because that's what people do when they trust you. They believe. But belief has limits. The next morning, Chloe left early. She told Amanda she was running a quick errand. In truth, she just needed space. Air. Something that didn't feel like Rachel's ghost still lingered on Nathan's desk. She ended up in the park. Phone off. Thoughts racing. A coffee she barely touched growing cold in her hand. Was she overreacting? Maybe. But something in that card stung deeper than it should have. Some things are meant to find their way back. What if Nathan was one of them? What if she was just a detour? At 11:42 a.m., Nathan noticed her empty desk. By 12:10, Amanda told him she'd left without explanation. By 12:45, he was calling her. Voicemail. At 1:17 p.m., he found the card. The box still sat there, untouched. He hadn't opened it, hadn't even read the note. But Chloe had. And now, she was gone. That night, Chloe returned to the apartment. She didn't expect Nathan to be home yet. She didn't expect to find the lights off, the windows open, or a single envelope left on the kitchen table with her name in his handwriting. She stared at it for a long moment, then picked it up. Chloe, you disappeared today, and I won't lie, it scared me. Not because you left a meeting or missed a call, but because it reminded me how easy it is to lose something real if we stop saying what we feel. I didn't open the box. I didn't read her note. I didn't need to, because whatever was in there wasn't my future. You are. I don't know how to prove that to you except by saying this. I choose you. Every day. Even when it's complicated. Especially when it is. If you need space, I'll give it. If you need time, I'll wait. But if you walk out of this apartment for good, I need you to know one thing. You were never a replacement. You were the reason I believed again. And losing you would be the real mistake. Nathan. Chloe wiped her eyes, the letter trembling in her hands. She didn't even realize he was standing at the doorway until he spoke. I didn't see the card, he said gently. Not until today. She turned, startled. I wasn't going to leave. I just needed to breathe. I should have told you. About the box. About her. About how even ghosts can still send mail. I should have trusted you. They stood there, two people with too many words and too few ways to say them. Chloe stepped closer. I was scared, she said, that I was just the chapter after her. You're the rewrite, he whispered. The one where the story finally makes sense. She let out a shaky breath. So what now? Nathan walked toward her. Now, he said, we stop letting fear write our dialogue. And then, no grand gesture. No dramatic kiss. Just a quiet embrace that said, you almost lost me, but I'm still here. And that was everything. Session 9. The photo in the drawer. Some drawers stay closed for a reason. Some hearts. 2. The night after the almost goodbye. Chloe couldn't sleep. Nathan was already in bed, breathing soft and steady beside her, his hand resting loosely near hers on the blanket. But her mind, it wouldn't stop spinning. She got up quietly, padded into the living room, and turned on the soft lamp in the corner. The apartment was still. glowing like a forgotten memory. Maybe it was the way things had felt fragile lately. Maybe it was the letter, or the card, or the box, or maybe it was just fear, the kind that creeps in once you realize how much you have to lose. Whatever the reason, she opened the drawer. The one in Nathan's study. The one he never used anymore. The one Chloe hadn't even noticed until that night. Inside were pens, a couple of old USB drives, a folded company t-shirt, and a photo. Chloe pulled it out slowly, hesitantly, like she knew this wasn't hers to find. In the photo, Nathan looked younger, softer, wearing a gray hoodie, hair slightly messier than usual. And he wasn't alone. Beside him sat a woman, dark hair, big smile, holding a baby boy no older than 2. The boy had Nathan's eyes. Chloe's hand shook. She stared at the photo, heart thudding, every part of her telling her not to jump to conclusions. But every instinct whispered, "This is a life he's never told you about." Behind her, a voice broke the silence. "Where did you find that?" She turned around. Nathan stood in the doorway, barefoot, eyes shadowed by something deeper than just sleep. "I didn't mean to snoop," Chloe said quickly. "I just couldn't sleep and—" "It's okay," he said, walking closer. "It was bound to surface eventually." She looked down at the photo again. "Is this your—" He sat down beside her. "My son," he said quietly. His name was Caleb. The word was dropped like a weight between them. Chloe's breath hitched. "Nathan?" He stared ahead, jaw tight. "I was 27. Rachel and I weren't married yet." Caleb was born in the middle of all the chaos, company launches, investor meetings, 20-hour workdays. But he changed everything. There was a long silence. He had this way of grabbing my face with both hands when I wasn't paying attention. Like he was saying, "Look at me, I'm right here." And I'd stop. Every time. Chloe was quiet, letting him speak, letting the ache settle into the room. "I lost them both in a car accident," Nathan continued. "On a rainy Monday. She was driving. I was supposed to be there but canceled last minute for a meeting that, ironically, got delayed." Chloe reached for his hand. He let her take it. "I didn't talk about it," he said, "to anyone. Not really. I buried myself in work. Shut down. Controlled everything I could so I didn't have to feel anything I couldn't." He looked at her now. "And then you showed up with coffee-stained resumes and blazer sleeves too long. And you reminded me how messy and beautiful life can be again." Tears slipped down Chloe's cheeks. "You didn't have to tell me this," she whispered. "But I wanted to," he said, "because I don't want to hide from you. Not anymore." Chloe looked at the photo again, then back at Nathan. "He would have loved you," Nathan said softly. "You both would have filled a room with laughter." "I wish I could have met him," she whispered. Nathan's eyes glistened, but he smiled. "You would have been his favorite." They sat there, side by side, holding grief like something sacred. Not something to fix, but something to share. And in that silence, Chloe understood. This wasn't just about a man who had lost. It was about a man learning to let love in again, even when it came with shadows. Especially then. Later that morning, as sunlight slowly filtered through the windows, Chloe placed the photo on the edge of Nathan's bookshelf. Not to hide it, but to honor it. When Nathan walked in with coffee in hand, he paused when he saw it there. "You sure?" he asked. Chloe nodded. "He's part of you, and I love all your parts. Even the ones that still hurt." Nathan set the mug down, walked toward her, and pulled her into his chest. For a long moment, they said nothing. Then he whispered into her hair, "I never thought I'd be brave enough to love again." Chloe smiled. "Turns out you just needed someone to make a mess of your perfect life." And for the first time in years, Nathan Parker felt whole again, not because the pain was gone, but because it finally had a place to rest. Session 10. The proposal that wasn't planned. Not every proposal needs a plan. Some just need the right moment and the right person. The storm rolled in on a Thursday night. Rain pelted the windows with urgent fingers. Wind howled between the high-rise towers of Manhattan and inside apartment 17C. Chloe was trying to light candles because the power had flickered 3 times in the last 10 minutes. "I swear if we lose electricity while I'm baking, I'll throw this cookie dough at the sky," she muttered, clutching a lighter. Nathan chuckled from the kitchen, sleeves rolled up, drying dishes with the precision of a man who could calculate profit margins in his sleep. "Don't tempt fate," he said. You're already trying to bake during a thunderstorm. That's asking for divine mischief. She raised an eyebrow. Says the man who alphabetizes his spice rack. I believe in order, he said. I believe in chocolate. The lights flickered again. And this time, they didn't come back. The apartment fell into warm shadow. The only light now coming from the soft flicker of Chloe's recently lit candles and the amber glow of the city outside. Okay, she said, hands on hips. Romantic ambiance unlocked. All we're missing is a power ballad and 2 confessions. Nathan walked toward her slowly, drying his hands with the last of the towel. You want a confession? He asked softly. Chloe blinked. Wait, that was sarcasm. I'm serious. Something in his voice made her heart quiet. He stood in front of her now, candlelight casting gold across his face. He looked nervous, or maybe unsteady, like someone on the edge of something he couldn't name yet. I was going to wait, he said. I had a plan, a ring, a dinner reservation, a speech so rehearsed it could have passed SEC regulations. Chloe tilted her head, not breathing. Nathan took her hands gently. But then the power went out, he said, and I remembered something you once told me. What? That life doesn't wait for perfect. It just shows up. Messy, unscripted, and if we blink too long, we miss it. She felt the first tear rise before he even said it. So I'm not waiting. He reached into his pocket and pulled out nothing. No ring, no velvet box, just his hand, shaking slightly. And that meant more than diamonds ever could. Chloe Martins, he said. I walked into my own office one morning thinking I needed a secretary. What I found was someone who rewired my soul. She laughed through the tears. You really are bad at metaphors. He smiled. I'm not perfect, he said. I've hurt. I've failed. I've built walls so high even I forgot how to climb them. But you laughed your way through every brick. You reminded me I'm allowed to love again. He dropped to one knee. No script, no crowd, just candlelight, thunder, and a girl who once spilled coffee in his lobby. I don't have a ring tonight. I'll get one, but I need to ask you this now. Because I can't imagine another storm, another sunrise, another anything, without you in it. He looked up at her, eyes full of raw hope. Will you marry me? Silence. The kind that falls before a heart says yes. Chloe dropped to her knees, face wet, laughter caught in her throat. You don't need a ring, she whispered. You already gave me everything. Is that a yes? It's a hell yes. He pulled her close, forehead pressed to hers, both of them laughing, crying, shaking from relief and disbelief. And when he kissed her, no one watched. No one clapped, but the candles flickered like they knew something sacred had just been sealed. Later that night, when the power returned and the world blinked back on, Chloe sat on the couch, wrapped in Nathan's arms, watching the city through rain-speckled glass. You sure you don't want the fancy proposal? He whispered. I got the real one, she replied, and that's the one I'll tell our kids about. He looked down. Kids, huh? Eventually. He smiled. I like the sound of that. Chloe smiled back, resting her head against his chest. And just like that, in the middle of a storm, a man who had once sworn off love became someone's forever. The Vows, the chapter called us. They started as strangers, then as a mistake, then as home. It was a crisp autumn afternoon in upstate New York. The air smelled like cinnamon and fresh pine, and golden leaves fell like confetti from trees that lined the quiet garden. The ceremony wasn't extravagant. Chloe didn't want chandeliers or rose petals sprayed with perfume. Nathan didn't want a 5-star venue or a corporate guest list. They wanted real, so they chose a quiet vineyard. Close friends, handwritten vows, and a guest of honor who sat front row, wearing pink silk, dark glasses, and a hat too big for anyone except Dolores Parker. She finally got him to smile like a man in love. Dolores whispered to Amanda, who sat beside her. Took him long enough. Amanda smiled, but worth the wait. At the end of the aisle, Nathan stood tall in a deep charcoal suit, nervously adjusting his cufflink, the same one Chloe had gifted him with a note that read, "In case you forget. This is your favorite shirt now." And then the music began. Simple, slow, a string quartet humming a tune that sounded like something between a love song and a beginning. Chloe stepped into view. Her dress wasn't grand. It flowed like a secret she didn't need to hide anymore. Her hair was swept up in soft waves. And her smile, that smile made Nathan forget how to breathe. When she reached him, neither of them spoke for a long second. They just looked at each other, as if trying to believe this was real. It was. They stood in front of the officiant, under a wooden arch draped with wildflowers, their hands intertwined. Then it was time for the vows. Nathan spoke first. I never believed in second chances. He began. Not really. I believed in schedules, in logic, in leaving before things could break me again. He turned to Chloe, eyes full. Then you walked in, holding a resume stained with coffee and a mouth full of optimism I didn't know I needed. You were a disaster, and somehow, exactly what I was waiting for. The guests laughed, teared up, held each other's hands. Nathan's voice dropped. You taught me that love doesn't fix what's broken, it stands beside it. Laughs with it, stays with it. He smiled. I don't promise perfection, but I promise presence, even when it's hard, especially then. Chloe wiped a tear. Then it was her turn. I was never the girl who made plans, she said, her voice shaking. I moved from apartment to apartment, from almost jobs to almost enoughs. I never had a map. She looked at Nathan, eyes glowing, until I walked into the wrong building. Laughter rippled gently. That day, I thought I was being ridiculous, desperate, lost, but what I found was you. She took a deep breath. You let me be loud, messy. You laughed at my post-it notes and let me eat cereal for dinner. You let me belong, and now I want to belong to you. Every day, they exchanged reins, and with a soft, reverent silence, they kissed. No fireworks, just warmth, and quiet joy, and Dolores whispering, about time. The reception was simple. Long tables with handmade place cards. A cake Chloe insisted on decorating herself. It leaned slightly. Nathan said it gave it charm. They danced under string lights. Nathan twirled Chloe once, then whispered, remember when you said you couldn't dance? She grinned. I still can't. I just found someone willing to dance with me anyway. And together, they moved like people who had been through storms. Like people who knew silence. And chose music. Later that evening, Chloe slipped off her shoes and sat on a bench at the edge of the vineyard. Watching guests mingle, laugh, sip wine, Nathan sat beside her, taking her hand. You tired, Mrs. Parker? She smiled. I'm glowing. That's different. He leaned in. So, what's next? She looked at him. We build the rest of the story. He nodded. Page by page? Messy margins, ink stains, sticky notes. They laughed. And the stars came out, not loudly, but quietly. Like love that doesn't need to prove itself anymore. Just exist. Thank you for watching today's Billionaire Love Stories. Every love story is a journey, filled with passion, heartbreak, sacrifice, and life-changing moments. Here at Billionaire Love Stories, we bring you the most unforgettable tales of love, power, and destiny, where hearts defy expectations and find their true match against all odds. If this story touched your heart, don't forget, like to support more incredible billionaire romances. Comment your thoughts. Can love truly overcome power and ambition? Subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss our next gripping love story. Billionaire Love Stories. Because love isn't about riches. It's about fate. Because love isn't about money. It's about the heart. See you in the next story.